For this session, we have the theme of the era of the climate crisis, humanitarian work, cases of innovation and cooperation from a lot of the stakeholders and organizations. For this session, we can also invite a lot of the speakers from NGO and International Red Cross and Red Crescent organizations for preparing a lot of the presentations. If you have any questions, please also leave your questions on the chat room so that we can utilize your questions during the Q&A session. And please be aware that your questions cannot be selected due to the time constraints. For the first speaker, we'd like to also invite a lot of ideas, the speakers who can also talk about innovative adaptation and mitigation activities as a priorities on behalf of the IFRC. And we'll also invite the speaker, the regional lead of climate and resilience of IFRC Asia Pacific Regional Office, who can also provide the presentation, the online.
So a few moments ago, he got the car accident, but he just participated and joined online, and he's going to deliver us his presentation.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Luis Rodriguez. I'm the thematic leader for climate and resilience at the regional office of IFRC for Asia Pacific. I'm based in Kuala Lumpur. Thank you for the opportunity to have this chance to talk to you about what we are doing both in climate adaptation and mitigation in our region, and try to show what could be interesting in terms of innovation and also in terms of impact. So let's start considering that our role and our work at the regional office is considering climate change as a humanitarian crisis. We have a large number of people who are already living in high spots of vulnerability to climate change. These numbers are huge. We are over 3.6 billion people who are at risk. However, if we do not take action, by 2050, 200 million people per year will need humanitarian assistance due to climate-related disasters, but also considering the expected socioeconomic impacts of climate change. So, from an organizational perspective, climate change is one of the 5 global challenges that are addressed within our corporate strategy 2030. However, this climate and the other challenges are interconnected. So basically, the work of climate change is across other thematic areas, covering not only disasters, but also livelihood, health, and population displacement. So, in the current context, we need to increase our greenhouse gas mitigation efforts. So, at this moment, it's very clear that a significant proportion of the warming is due to human activities and is coming from the pre-industrial times. However, what is happening now is that current trends of the implemented policies under the NDCs of the countries are not ambitious enough. And if we are not taking action, it's very likely that the global temperature will exceed 1.5 degrees of warming. Okay, so this is from the side of the need to mitigate, but we also need to promote adaptation and resilience. So there are clear technical and physical bases that explain how the increment of CO2 emissions and the increase in temperatures and changes in the patterns of precipitation could increase the risk of natural disasters, including also the frequency and intensity of extreme events. So what does it represent for our region? Our region has 13 of the 30 most vulnerable countries. The last year, we have 57 million already affected by natural disasters and at a high economic cost. 2021, the cost of natural disaster was over $50 billion per year. But that's only the economic aspect. From the human perspective, in the last 10 years, climate, natural disasters, and other type of social unrest have displaced over 200 million people within our region. So there is also a need to adapt and create resilience, in particular among the most vulnerable groups and among the most vulnerable countries. So this graphic here shows what are, on the left side, what our contributions to global CO2 emissions. So we have basically in Asia and the Pacific around 30% of the global cumulative greenhouse gas emissions. So we have also our fair share of the problem. But it's something important to underline that we have also not a homogeneous region. We have smaller economies that are less capable to adapt to climate change, and also they need extra support. So as this graphic shows, more advanced economy has a high adaptive capacity index. And this is also the opposite for the low-income economies like PNG, Bangladesh, Myanmar, to say some of them. So what does it represent is that we need to work in adaptation and mitigation. But as I said, we are part of a group working or addressing climate and environmental crisis. From the perspective of climate and environmental crisis, it's important to underline two things. That at this moment, we have go beyond several of the planetary boundaries, and we are really exceeding the capacity of our natural systems to provide the goods and services that sustain our livelihoods. Something that is relevant is to say, for instance, in Asia, has 74% of the global air pollution death. So it represents that we have around 7 million people dying due to air pollution in our region every year. 80% of the rivers in Asia Pacific are already polluted, and it represents 1.8 million deaths per year. Southeast Asia is one of the areas with the highest rates of deforestation. 60% of our pastures in Asia are already degraded, and we expect that over time, 42% of all the species in Southeast Asia could be lost. What does it represent? When we put these impacts within the economy, we understand that around 63% of the Asia-Pacific GDP could be at risk due to the environmental crisis. So, what do we do? We have two key strategic documents that guide our work. One is our Strategy 2030, that is a platform for change, and the other is the Climate and Environmental Charter for Humanitarian Organizations. So what we do is we need to understand that we have to respond to the humanitarian needs, and basically we help people to adapt to the impact of climate change and environmental crisis, but also we have to support people and countries to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. But we need to understand that we have to focus on the most vulnerable people and settings. We need to facilitate finance for locally led adaptation and resilience, something that is not easy. and the trend is very clear that just a small portion of the climate finance is reaching the local communities. And something important, we work to promote coherence across humanitarian, development, environmental, and climate approaches. We have to work beyond our area of comfort and start working with others in a collaborative manner. We need to keep working on anticipatory and early action, but having in mind that we need to provide evidence-based solutions, so we need a strong technical knowledge, and we need to also address all the potential implications of climate change in an integrative and coherent and coordinated way, mainstreaming climate change within our operations, even in disaster risk reduction, in livelihoods, health, migration, but also in social protection. An example of our approach is the integrative and cross-thematic work we are doing on climate within the Global Climate Resilience Program that has now 22 national societies in Asia Pacific. Our work is around 4 pillars focused on disaster risk reduction, early action and preparedness, but also health, climate displacement, and livelihoods and ecosystem services. Having in mind also that we have to reduce our own carbon footprint and greening our operations. So our team here at the regional office works on several thematic areas that are integrated and sometimes are already cross-cutting. No, we have significant work on climate, health, and livelihoods. We have been working for many years with most national societies in community-based disaster risk reduction. We have 1/3 of our national societies from the region already interested or working in anticipatory action and forecast-based finance. We have significant efforts within urban resilience. But something that is what I wanted to highlight for this conversation today is we are working and we have been working in nature-based solutions. Nature-based solution is something that has just recently been formalized. The concept of such has been in place from different angles, but basically is focused on protect, conserve, and restore natural or modified freshwater, coastal, or marine ecosystems to address all the social, economic, and environmental challenges. So, in few words, working with nature-based solutions allow us to jointly reach adaptation objectives, mitigation objectives, and also reduce disaster risk. Our example is our work in mangroves. Why mangroves? Because they produce a series of benefits in terms of reducing risk, but they are also clear estimation of what could be the potential direct economic benefits of mangrove management and mangrove reforestation and mangrove work. No, it was not only from the perspective of increasing yields and increasing diets and income, but also having a series of ecological benefits that are important for us, for instance, carbon capture and also recycling of nutrients. What we did, no? Our example is our nature-based solution work in Vietnam. It's a project that was led by the Vietnam Red Cross in collaboration with the Danish Red Cross, Japanese Red Cross, and IFRC. It was an over 10 years long project. No? Within that project, we were successfully creating or sustaining or protecting almost 9,000 hectares of mangrove, working in 166 coastal communities and providing direct benefits to 350,000 people. But what is our important aspect to underline here? From the perspective of disaster risk reduction, this mangrove planting or this mangrove reforestation protected over 100 kilometers of sea dikes, and this protection provide indirect benefits to about 2 million people in coastal areas. And in terms of monetary savings, it represents over $15 million of avoided damages in the communities and in the infrastructure. However, the project also includes training and awareness and capacity building. We work in 622 communities with over 300,000 students and 6,000 community awards who were trained in disaster preparedness in these coastal areas. This is from the perspective of disaster risk reduction. What about in terms of adaptation and livelihoods? Well, in enhancing the quality, the habitat increased the yields of marine and also marine products, almost 800%. What does it represent in monetary terms? That the involved communities, in some cases, increased their direct benefits in almost $6 million. Some of them where the amount was small, no? Let's say 300,000, 350,000, but we need to understand that the impact evaluation was done with mangroves at different stage of growth and different stage of maturity. So we can say now that the range goes from, let's say, 300,000 to $6 million per community. But the important point for us is to underline that this type of nature-based solution approaches is also contributing to mitigation of greenhouse gas emissions. In this case, we were successful quantifying the amount of carbon captured per hectare and using estimations based on carbon markets. We estimate the present value of the CO2 captured, and it was exceeding 281 million. Overall, the benefit cost ratio of this type of interventions was 69, so it was very attractive for funding. We are now having around 1/3 of our national societies interested in implement nature-based solutions within their planning. And here at the regional office, we are happy to provide technical support and advice on that. Thank you.
Well, that was a presentation by Mr. Luis Rodriguez. And if you have questions, please bear us till the end. As Luis has mentioned repeatedly about the nature-based solution, one of the best cases of the NBS is going to be presented by Professor of Moo-Young of Seoul University.
The theme of the presentation will be multipurpose rainwater harvesting for all. I'd like to welcome Professor Han for his presentation. Nice to meet you all. My name is Moo-Young, professor of Seoul National University. I'm currently emeritus professor as I was retired as of the last year. I have working on the multipurpose rainwater harvesting for all against the flood. We have been collecting a lot of efforts. And this week on the Friday on KBS1 TV, I will be also appearing on the interviews how we have been putting efforts against the flood. And the theme of the presentation is actually multipurpose rainwater harvesting. The global thinking is the one of conventional approach, but still we also need to consider how to make the actions for the next generation. In this regard, let me focus on the actions that we can also inherit to the next generation. The theme in English is the multipurpose rainwater harvesting for all, for the prevention of mountain fires or the wildfires. I'm going to talk about the status of the wildfires in Korea and the world, and the installation and the systems, as well as the cases and the making resilience. And resilience is everybody's the business, as we also have the notion. I'm also going to talk to you how we have also done those activities and the programs so that we can set up the initiatives. First of all, when it comes to wildfires, you can see a lot of the countries are facing the wildfires, not only in Korea but also in Europe, in Greece. But the cause is actually the dried mountain leading to the wildfires. We absolutely need to have the water to extinguish the fire so that we can also dispatch the helicopters to extinguish the fire with the water. And sometimes the firefighters can also climb up the mountain to extinguish the fire. Absolute water is essential, but still we are facing the shortage of the rainwater. About long time ago, like 1,000 meter was the average rainfall or the precipitation amount, but still we are facing a lot the shortage of the rainwater nowadays. Then in this regard, if we collect together or such a ponding effect of the rainwater, it may be also very efficient for preventing the wildfires. Then we also have to make the mountains the wet with the water, and one of the solutions was to have the excavations into some of the lands, make the artificial pond or the artificial ponding. Of course, it does not really require a lot of the high-tech knowledge. Only local community members can join in creating more jobs for the project. The Korean we call 물모이, or the water ponding project in English. If we don't really have the water ponds and the rainwater can just be flowing out down to the stream, or the underground water could be also collecting the water in a continuous basis if we have the water pond. In this regard, we can also prevent droughts if we have the more evaporations of water. We can prevent the heat waves as well as the wildfires. In this regard, these are my ideas, and based on the ideas, actually these ideas are not new. Utilizing the slope of the mountain, the paddy fields, and such a landscape of the water pond can be also applied for these projects. As we have also been inherited from our ancestors to have such compositions or the landscape of the water ponds or 물모이 in Korean from our ancestors, you can also have very easy understanding on the structure. So let me show you how we have installed the 물모이 or the water pond. I have learned myself to demonstrate a video via the Google map. That's one of the private land by one of the church in the community. And there is one of the area you can refer to the water pond or 물모이 in Korea. We installed the 3 water ponds when we established the water ponds as of the September 1st of this year, just to get prepared from the high time of the typhoons, so that we can see a lot of resilience from the typhoons in the last month. A, B, C are the locations of the 3 water ponds. We have utilized the waste plastics for the facilities, and for the B, the second location, we have collected together by cutting the trees in the surrounding areas, only requiring the labor cost. And for the third spot, they call the C, the deers and the rabbits are definitely have to have the access into the drinking water. And if we have the water ponds and those species in surrounding areas, they can also come together to water ponds to drink some water. By having the 3 locations here and scientific monitoring was also conducted as of the October 1st before the time of the heavy rain in Korea. Humidity sensors were established, and we have also put some of the sensors along the slope. Still, we are continuously measuring the values. 15 or 20% are the average numbers, but let me give more easier way. As of yesterday, I also visited that site, and I just dig like by 50 centimeter into the ground for excavation. And do you think that the ground soil was dry or wet? Actually, yeah, that was dry because the water, rainwater, cannot be all the going through the below like that depth. So that I just realized that if we have such a very deep the water pond, and if we have very heavy rain season, and such water ponds can play a very the key roles for collecting or gathering a lot of the water against such a natural disasters. Just try to dig down about by 50 centimeter into the ground so that you can really realize the effects. And the water pond is very good. And thankfully, the Korean Red Cross was one of the sponsors for that, the Mulmoe, the water pond project. Thank you once again for your contribution and support. Whenever we may have new ideas, and the point here is that it can be also very the key point that we can utilize the deeper into the ground to have the more resilience for the water ponds. The theme of today's presentation is the making resilience everybody's business and the public-private partnership. Humanitarian institutions, local community, central government, international organizations are stakeholders surrounding Red Cross as the key elements and players for this type of the project. Let me share with you some of the cases that we have done. Of course, with the notion of the resilience is everybody's or everyone's business, the PPP, the public-private partnerships, were essential. So I just also tried to apply those concepts. We visited the Puramsan, the mountain in Korea, and the female voluntary members gathered together to dig into the ground upon their capacities for their excavation, just by manure the work. It was possible because actually the volunteer members were actually residents of the community. So for their sons and kids, next generation, with the community spirit and ownership, they were also involved as volunteer members to really dig into the ground for the water pond. In fact, that's a lot of contribution from the citizens and residents. And IBK, one of the bank companies in Korea, for CS or ESG or CSR activities were also done thanks to their sponsorship. The site is Gwangju in the one of the Gyeonggi province as of September of this year. One company conducted and selected the site for enriching the mountain and surrounding areas for eco-friendly project. And then the one of the company has also put their efforts to give the financial support for the one of the water pond project, so that for one company, one valley program or one water pond program could be one of our initiatives. That's how we have also done together with the employees of the IBK in Korea. If you are interested in, and please also attend or participate in one of the voluntary programs. As we continue to collect the result, you can see that myself on the right picture. Scientific research is very crucial to really monitor the flow of the water along the side and mountain, and structural stability is a very key concept to design the dimension and the size in a sustainable and safe manner for the water pond based on the scientific research. Not only that, We were also joined by a lot of the Red Cross seniors and volunteers, as we are also joined by the head of the delegation. But the volunteers, most of them were aged 70s or older. As a voluntary members, the social responsibilities or the social service by the Red Cross could be also one of initiatives that we can looking forward to the future. Indeed, that's a very small proportion of our project of the current status. But in the local areas and the waffle, we can focus on the one of the waffle area, but we can focus or select one of the cell, one of the area, so that we can have very widespread effects of the such a water pond throughout the greater Seoul area as we think or as we design the waffle type water management so that it requires the legislative and the policy, the framework, as well as the budget allocation as we would like to also have in the future. Next, KRC is the one in promoting the potentials and the ideas of the Moo-Young, the water ponds requiring the more technology, system, cost, as well as the lot of the financial assistance. RCSC, the Red Cross seniors and volunteer members and residents from seniors, the female volunteers and young generation can also be involved. But we also think of the effects of the water ponds leading to some the benefits for the ecosystem. First, we have to consider education and nurturing the new ideas leading to the outcome so that we can have more donation. That's not really mandatory, but essentially or optionally, we also have to have the research to expand our effects of the project so that we can have more involvement from the government as well as international organizations, including the IFRC and the Korean Red Cross. In the beginning, the global thinking or the thinking global approaches were the key concept under the IFRC. Local action and the global reach are also the key philosophies supported by the IFRC. In this regard, we can also have some movements in fulfilling the requirements and objectives of the IFRC. In conclusion, first, we have to extinguish wildfire with water. To do so, we can utilize existing facilities like the paddy fields and the landscape as we have in Korea to establish the water pond. We have to also build up the more best cases. For the IFRC 2030 strategy, the local action and global reach are the most critical against the climate and environmental crisis. In this regard, I'd like to also strongly support the coordinations between the KRC and IFRC. And as we have a lot of the members who are taking interest in those programs and activities, in November 10th, we'll be also have the Moo-Young, the water pond seminar. So we are looking forward to your participation in that seminar. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Professor Han. You also mentioned the IFRC notion, the nature-based solution, the done and presented by the previous speaker. A lot of the different activities and programs are ongoing. And one of the examples, the Moo-Young, the water pond project, could be also more introduced around the world. Local action, as you highlighted throughout your presentation. As of the end of the September, APMCR in Australia, the Asia Pacific Disaster Risk Resilience Seminar was hosted and conducted in Australia. Local action and natural-based solutions around the world were also key themes of this seminar and conference in Australia. I do really hope that we can have a lot of impact. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Next, I would like to invite Vice President Choi Soonyoung for international programs of the World Vision Korea, and he's going to introduce to you the farmer-managed natural regeneration activities in Kenya. Please welcome him with a big hand. Hello everyone, as introduced, I am Soonyoung from World Vision Korea. Thank you very much for inviting me to the 4th International Forum on Disaster Resilience. Like other organizations in the era of the climate crisis, to protect and restore the environment, we are making continuous efforts as well. As introduced, the farmer-managed natural reservation will be introduced to you because this is a method that we are taking, and also we're going to show you our project in Kenya Tana River Climate Change Response Program. Centering on Kenya, first I'm going to mention about some of the key concepts from the presentation of the Jocheonyo you have heard, so I'm going to skip it. So the World Vision is working on for the children's lives. But due to the carbon emission and global warming and extreme weather, we had a lot of implications, and all of these are threatening the life of child and children, and also widening and worsening the inequality, and also making the vulnerables more vulnerable. So from the perspective of children, we wanted to change the world. So we have carried out the program to tackle and address climate change. There are various influences from the climate change. Not only it directly threatens the health, but also it increases vulnerability and inequality of children. Like a flood in Pakistan, it causes humanitarian crisis as well. In order to protect children's life, we are carrying out climate smart agriculture, and also we do restore environment, and also we carry out DRR response efforts. Not only that, but building solidarity and making efforts in advocacy, and also shouldering personal responsibility, we're carrying out our programs as well. Not only that, the FMNR, which is a restoration work method, we are using this method. As you heard from Professor Han, like a water harvesting method, it is nothing new. So like a pruning or shedding and sharing, all of this method can be utilized at the site so the farmers can protect the trees and restore trees. As trees restores, then they can actually regenerate the earth as well. So we do use indigenous trees instead of the foreign trees, and we do plant them, and also farmers can use them as the fuels and their activities as well. So they can protect the forest and also the environment. They can increase the productivity, and also they can enhance resilience. So we are supporting them with these programs. As you can see, what kind of trees and species they need to restore, we do tell, and then we do prune and manage in our program, and let all these trees and plants to be used in daily lives. We do encourage them so that we can restore and preserve and conserve the earth and trees. However, as time elapses, we can see the deforestation and degradation of the forests as well. So it's really difficult or challenging or even impossible for you to prune and manage where there is a bare land. So you first plant the trees, and also based on the FMNR, we do manage and restore and also conserve the forests. In the case of Kenya, about 82% is dependent on agriculture, and also about 95.4% of the households are dependent the farming as a source of income. And also the foreign trees and species can invade the indigenous species, aggravating climate change as a result. And also the food security and income sources are threatened among the local residents, so the climate actions and activities are essential in this place. So, and also we have some unique challenges or problems in this region. First was the introduction of a methane, and which was the invasive tree species. So actually the methane was attacking the indigenous the species that made or threatened the species of plant there. And also there was a problem of unsustainable fuel use. So what kind of cooking tools and other things, methods, were the considerations that we had to consider. And also, there was a problem, and also the vicious cycle of the poverty and economic vicious cycle among the women who had limited access to the resources. So, in order to enhance the resilience against climate change, we carried out these three projects. First, IFRC restored about 9,000 hectares of land, but we are planning to restore about 250 acres at least, and we're going to map the region, the target area, and then we're going to see which area needs to be restored. And then with a proper technology-based seed balls, which are the seeds of the trees, will be provided. And actually, we have been providing this as well. Then sometimes when we plant seeds, there is some problems because the livestock come there and eat out the seed, or even the sunlight exposure can dry out all the seeds. But when it comes to the seed ball, it is uniquely coated, so the livestock or other cattle cannot eat that, and the rain cannot be soaked in. So with spreading the seed ball by the drones, we can germinate, and then we can grow them into trees. And the seed ball is really affordable. 1 kilogram sack is just 1,000 won. But it is very efficient in germinating, so I think it is a really efficient method for us to use. So that's why we're using the seed ball. Second, no matter how we grow plants or the trees, in order to sustain our livelihood and to eat, if we deforest them, then it will take a lot of time to regrow them. So we are supporting households to use the grain method, for example. We do select some of the children and also women and support like this. For example, this is a sort of a cook stove we use at household, and it is called a Jiko. It consumes less energy and gas, so it can protect the user's health, and also it can use less fuels, so we can use less tree logs as well. So the youth can create this and even sell as part of economic activities. Not only that, we do buy solar lighting at low price and support communities' economy as well. So children, youth, and women can stand their own feet economically, and also these indeed can support and contribute to the sustainability of the nature in that local community. So no matter how we protect environment and use less energies and so on, we need to make them sustainable. So what we have to do is that we need to have a good governance by the local communities. To that end, we are actually supporting the governance program as well. And we do set up communities and committees and associations to govern and protect the trees and forests. And also, the diverse opinions of the local residents to be heard and accepted by the government. We are supporting that. And also, with the management committee of the local community, we discuss the ways to formulate some of the practical guidelines to support the local residents as well. Last but not least, I'm going to talk about how we're going to protect the local areas and how to raise the awareness. Well, we do provide training educations for the local residents on the natural resource management, and also we found out the platforms to maintain their education. So by using user the platform, we do collect the participants' opinions and share with the local governments and other organizations as well. This is the Kenya World Vision Sustainable Project and the restoration. So could you play it, please? Recently, we could not go there, but prior to COVID-19 outbreak, we could witness the Tana River slowly and steadily changed into the restoration. So we have witnessed that. So we have filmed that. Initially, it was a bare and deserted land. But after 2 years since then, we did not cut down all the trees. We just left the branches that can grow further and strongly, and we did a pruning job here. And then we could see that the trees are flourishing. Well, perhaps if I go there back, I believe that you can have a more green trees. Well, even though you get support on site in Korea, but the population said that the country which causes problem, the other part can be affected. So is it suffice to support the on-site? That was the question that we came up with. Well, of course, we try to encourage the Korean society to turn their interest to switch on to have a better understanding of the climate crisis and create a climate change response campaign. And we launched that, and we have been carrying out that campaign throughout the nation. So the name of the campaign is Climate Crisis Awareness Campaign, and there are 5 agents protecting the Earth, and they are engaging in climate change response activity. One of the agents is called Agent 4, which restores the forest, like you have seen the project or program in Kenya. So based on the FNNR, you can grow and develop the forests. So by making people understand this FNNR, we can encourage people to restore the projects, and we can also raise the awareness of this method among public. And we do allow the people to decorate climate crisis agent crisis to induce their interest, and also we do run public awareness raising event on metaverse. The Tana River Canyon forest restoration method and other programs are included on these metaverse program. So how we can contribute and participate in the program can be also viewed. And for the students aged between 14 to 19, they can learn about the climate change and how Korea can respond to the climate change and prepare for that are taught through an education program through our Global Citizenship e-learning course. I brought you here a QR code, so please access to it to refer in details about our project. And when it comes to the climate crisis, to deal with it, it should be everyone's business. And also, what we do affects the people and country as well as the region that are most vulnerable and poor. So I hope that this can be one of the solutions to respond to the climate change. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much, Vice President. The FMNR project in Kenya was presented by Vice President, and also we learned that we can do many things. Although it seemed the small things, if they are gathered together, then we can create a big change. Was the topic that I could learn from her presentation.
For the last presentation, has been only prepared in Korean, but in order to disseminate that information, we are also very great privilege so that we have us review the contents and information of the presentation slides written in Korean. The theme of the last presentation is Sustainable Insect Breeding for Organic Agriculture, and presenter is CEO of Entomo, Park Kihwan. Nice to meet you all. I am the CEO of Entomo, Park Kihwan. Let me greet once again. Thank you. Our company, Entomo, was founded as the startup by the young entrepreneurs, and we are the agricultural company. And you can refer to the contents of my presentation. As mentioned before, BSF, the black soldier fly, was the key source for our business. The food waste is the one of the source that we can recycle and recirculate for the new energy, so that we can utilize the food waste into the animal feed as well as the treats for the animals. You can refer to the foundation year back in 2014 with 20 employees, location here in Cheongju City in Korea. For the 동해등에 in Korean, which means the BSF, black soldier fly, is the one of the type of the fly insect, and BSF has some different characteristics when it comes to the waste treatment. The National Institute of the Agriculture and Science has conducted the study probably back in 2007 to compare the amount of the consumptions by the BSF and other types of the insect. When it comes to the treating the waste into the energy sources, you can refer to that the 10 days, that's the time that we have to focus on the treating into the animal feed from the life cycle of the BSF. It takes about 10 days for the pupa. It means we have the 2.5 or 3 cycles per month for utilizing the life cycle of the BSF. So now we can extract those BSF and converting into the feed for animals and the treat for animals. We also expect the oil from BSF and biofuel. We can utilize that as the additives, or biodiesel is increasing in terms of the cost. So now we can also apply the BSF for the biodiesel. But as we have very limited amount of the production, still we also have to look at whether to expand the market size. For the BSF, there may be the excretion, the waste from BSF. We are focusing on the converting into those excretion waste from BSF into the sources and materials as presented by the previous speaker for the cases in Kenya. We are also trying to contact some of the local companies in Kenya how to produce and extract the materials from the BSF into the animal feed. As the CEO, absolutely, we have a lot of information in terms of the organization structures of our company. These are the missions and the visions of our company, utilizing the BSF and the insect. Like to also focus on in creating the ecosystem for fulfilling the needs and requirements of the consumers in an eco-friendly manner. As started as the social enterprise or startup back in the 2014, SVI indicators as well as the key point, ESG, for even for the small and medium-sized enterprises. Are actually the way that we have done our business. When it comes to the environmental values, we have been realizing, but also beyond that, we can have apply for the ESG objectives along with the conventional business, the ways that we have done in the past. Production, HR resource management, contents, strategic planning division are under the company. And we also have the research institution. So we have a total of the 5 divisions. You can refer to the history of our history. Starting from 2014, by 2022, you can refer to the history of our business. You can refer to the certification and the patents that we have acquired. The business, similar, and simply we are focusing on the business structure and strategy based on the collaboration with the local communities, as known as the spider web structure, to strengthen the collaboration with the local communities. Of course, for the insect, the industry, the social enterprise can be also involved upon the collaborations to produce and distribute a lot of the products. In this regard, to nurture the capacities from the insect farms, systems are to be stabilized, along with the know-how, as well as the technologies, as well as equipment, as the key 3 pillars. To collaborate with the farms, you can refer to a lot of the information, as well as the documents. Domestically in Korea, the smart system and the data collections and smart and IT technology are being also ongoing, especially for the BSF, food waste or sludge, oil, or any types of excretion waste can be also touched upon by the extract from the BSF. When it comes to practical application, we also have to know how we have been preparing to make the commercialization of those products on the BSF. By utilizing the smart systems for the operation and management, you can also have a lot of information that we have to also have a long way to mature our competitive edge in the market. Under the theme of the technical transfer for the farms, for their technologies, we have conducted a lot of the seminar and the programs to disseminate the technologies and transfer the technology. We can produce, distribute, manufacture, and process the extracts into the animal feed upon the collaboration. You can refer to the one type of the lava as one type of the cycle of the BSF. On the right-hand side, you can see that the incubation, the machine for the BSF. As initial business model back in 2014, Entomo is focusing on the urban green plant operation. By utilizing the water purifying system with the equipment and the facilities, we can extract from the BSF as we have the initial design for our business technology. But still, as we have seen a lot of the environmental limitations, the barriers into the market was relatively higher. And now, as we have been for 5 years from the initial year of the foundation, by gathering the waste from a lot of the subway station in Seoul, we tried to collect some of the waste for our business. And by utilizing the food waste from one of the university in Korea, we also tried to have and apply for our business project. And as we see that the barriers into the market was relatively higher, requiring the more efforts to develop the technology. That's why we also consider some of the pilot project in Indonesia in 2018. For the solution dissemination in Indonesia, we conducted the market study at the GTC Green Technology Center. We conducted the feasibility study for the market, and as a type of the KOICA's Innovative Technology Program, CTS was conducted, and also for 2019, going through the pandemic of the COVID-19, we are now able to visit Indonesia for about 1.5 years. But that's also the current status that we have done so far. In Indonesia, the food waste is to be more strengthened to reduce among the citizens. In the past, you can also refer to the one of the reclamation sites in the one of the regions in Seoul, in Korea. In this regard, there may be some civil complaints surrounding the reclamation sites across the local communities. So there are a lot of the areas for the allocating the waste and the raising the animals, including poultry. So on behalf of the Indonesian government, a lot of the activities and the efforts are being developed. That was one of the boom in Indonesia to treat the waste to increase the efficiency of the treatments on the food waste and the waste products. They also consider the waste and ideas to reduce the waste or making more conversions into the resources from waste. That's the initial map for our business. From the food waste bank, if we assume that we treat the 30 ton per day, then 1/10 or the 1/18th of the total amount can be converted into the organic ecosystems for the BSF, and the other remaining compounds can be also manufactured for the organic, the feed, and or the fertilizer. In the one of the Makassar city in Indonesia, as we also have a lot of the movements for the collecting the waste bottles and papers. As a part of those events, we also try to increase the public awareness in making more citizens in Indonesia to get paid if they also return the waste. For this project, of course, when it comes to the pre-market study, by utilizing the site in the Makassar in Indonesia. We selected one of the pilot sites. Still, the installation and the project was also conducted. So stakeholders, YPM, the Environmental Protection Authority in Indonesia, and local government of Makassar and Entomo were the three key players for the business execution upon the MOU. For installing the system, but due to a lot of external factors, including the pandemic, we were not able to install the facilities until the last year due to the pandemic. Some of the cargoes were delayed to be fully dispatched. Still, we are working on the full installation to nurture and raise the BSF. Absolutely, we also have to produce the eggs for the BSF, and after going through the dry and the manufacturing, we also have to more transforming into the business model or the products leading to the business profitable portfolio. Probably environmental values are to be more but for the business models, we also have to consider how to make them more cost. And one of the elements is that to raise the BSF in extracting the BSF into the animal feed and the biofuels as well. 30 ton per month is also processed for the utilizing BSF into the making the resources. And we have also done the monthly capacities to produce and the manufacture. It's about 200 or 300 tons per month. So thoroughly production and the manufacturing have been also focused. In this regard, for Indonesia, the lavas as one of the outputs of the production can be also more considered to increase more the value-added products. And by utilizing the oil, the cosmetics or the soap could be also established in the future. As mentioned before, for the production, you can refer to the stage for the production. We have some different cultures between Korea and Indonesia, as we are more accustomed to having the taking very fast received action in terms of the Korean culture. But when it comes to the local communities or the circumstances in Indonesia, we have also faced very different attitudes or behaviors for working between the two countries. But still, we may have a lot of potentials in the local market in Indonesia. For the production assessment, probably the 1/4 or 1/5 of the population, the production in Korea could be also done by the local workforce in Indonesia. It means about the 20 employees are required if for the same amount of the work or output, if we only need to have the 4 or 5 people in the Korean market for the same amount of the workload. Of course, that's a reality, and we have been also trying our efforts to develop those gaps. And the money and the cost and the profitability are actually the key elements, and as we have also strongly insisted to get some support from the local community in Indonesia, and 400 or the 500 kilogram per month are being distributed in Indonesia. And when it comes to having the value-added products, we also have to think how to make or set up for the distribution structure within the Indonesian market. That's our next step. That's the last slide, last part of my presentation. For the recirculation and recycling on the resources and extracted from the BSF and the YPN, the local Environmental Protection Agency of Indonesia, we're also collaborating together for further research and development. Let me also quickly go over this slide, and you can refer to the stage and status of the business as we are continuing to have. And by utilizing the BSF, And probably the carbon dioxide emissions could be reduced if we only focus and accelerate the speed and technology for the BSF when it comes to the functionality while operating the equipment and the machines, and the waste can be also more recycled into our animal food. You can refer to the products that we are distributing nowadays in the market for the animal feeds. And also we are distributing the products including the soil for the BSF and for flour as well. HR resources and development, proliferation, eco-friendly values, and promotions of the recirculation are our key targets that we would like to achieve. In the future, we like to also fulfill and requirements in a more eco-friendly manner. Probably the paradigm in the local communities, especially in the rural areas, are to be more strengthened for the eco-friendly ecosystem. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you. Thank you very much, CEO Park Kihwan, for your very passionate presentation. We really hope that we can utilize the more cases in Asia-Pacific region to have more effects and outcomes. And your presentation was very passionate and interesting, as I also dream to have a lot of objectives. Thank you very much once again for all the 4 presenters. I'd like to have the 10 minutes Q&A session. And like to check if we have some the questions on the chat room on the Zoom. And if not, we'd like to also get some questions from the floor. And please raise your hands so that we can deliver the microphone for your question and answer. Is there anyone who'd like to ask any question? Okay, Ambassador? It's not a question but a comment. I am working for the development at the Seoul National University. I'm working as an advisor. But for today's forum and seminar, the 4th International Forum on Disaster Resilience, and the theme is very timely and relevant. And I feel that it's very beneficial. In particular, the keynote speaker, Dr. Cho Chun-ho, highlighted it's very important to combat the climate crisis. But the last message was very positive because we can make some actions against the climate crisis throughout the presentation. And I assume that we can have some actions against the climate crisis. Of course, I have missed some of the presentation in the beginning. And to evaluate the water pond, actually the water preservation is very essential. But still, a lot of the mountains have very steep slope for making the water flow very quickly. But you also mentioned and gave a lot of ideas on the preserving the water or the water pond, because it takes about 30 years for the recycle the water resources. So you highlighted the idea of the water collection as water pond throughout your presentation as one of innovative examples. As the MC mentioned before, nature-based approach plus local action are also very key notions, not only just delivered by the Professor Han. It's also very difficult to pronounce for myself, but there's FMNRA activities from the World Vision, and also the final presentation from the Entomo, CEO Park Kihwan, also mentioned before the key notions on local action. Based on local action, the global reach is the key element that we can take actions upon the key collaboration with the Korean Red Cross. So I really gain a lot of the fruitful ideas and the messages. Thank you.
Is there any other person who want to pose questions from the floor? Yes, I see one here. I am Imyoung from ESG at LGU Plus. My question goes to Professor Han Moo-Young.
When it comes to the voluntary work, how do you think that the businesses or the companies could be allocating or supporting the budget for your project? Do you have any cases for the number of the voluntary work as well as the cost for the project? Thank you for your question. Of course, in the beginning stage, some of the companies were not really fully aware of our idea for the project because we thought that it's very essential to proceed those projects, and I also contributed my own the cost for the project as well in the beginning stage. But gradually, probably there will be more proactive collaborations or involvement from a lot of the companies for one company, for one valley. That's our ideal goal that we'd like to achieve. So I'm also looking forward to having your support in the future as well. Are there any further questions from the floor? Are there any questions from the supporting members or staff members? Feel free to ask any questions. Okay, we got some one person. Team leader Kim. I just joined very late, but I also listened to the Entomo and I listened to the final presentation. Like for the lunch, the school lunch, there may be some the food waste from the school cafeteria, but BSF, as you also mentioned before, how long does it take for extracting the BSF into the making the animal feed? 5 days or 10 days could be one of the timelines, but actually, simply, if we say that we raise the BSF on the dimension of the 120 centimeter or the 550 centimeter, it takes about the 1,000 kilogram of the BSF A per day. Then if we have some of the food waste from the cafeteria, are you also having some capacities to treat the BSF extracts into the animal feed? Yes, we have some of the transporting company so that there may be some the stages that we can induce involvement. That's why we also have the partnership with the other companies in other countries because the generally for especially in the regions like vulnerable to disasters, maybe some difficult for you to get the access into those areas like local communities by collecting or extracting those food waste. So you can also think of any ideas for the better access. Thank you very much. Are there any further questions from the floor? And if not, IFRC Beijing office has also made some of the comments. In China, 물모이 in the water pond and similar approaches were also conducted. Spongy seat, seated, Spongy City was one of the projects by collecting the rainwater for another types of the objectives to increase the resilience from the disasters. If there are no further questions from the floor, then we can wrap up now.